it almost feels like an episode 83, even though it's the 82nd, because we had the talk with Tom, who, if you follow us on Twitter, you saw reached out and wanted to record a little thing. He's from the UK and wanted to talk a little bit about NYCFC. So I guess just to get that off the plate first, that'll be coming out. I think he said like in a few weeks' time. So I don't know if at that point we'll have our second star or not. But if that is the case, we made an agreement with him that we'll bring him on the show. So I think definitely an interesting person to bring on and potentially talk about the team if we get the chance to again.
Yeah, and I mean, even regardless, it might be cool just to bring him onto this channel because he's a really smart guy, really good opinions and very good conversation we had with him, and it'd almost be interesting to see, our playoff run from his eyes, and see kind of a different perspective from somebody who's not, diehard bleeding blue all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you'll see it. That'll come out eventually. It'll be, in the same setting, just a little bit, different clothes, different things, different conversations.
Yeah, and what a playoff run and a playoff game this was that we just had. I mean, I think out of every playoff game that was played, like ours, I think we went out there and showed the best performance. Now we don't see LAFC playing and Philly playing because of their bye weeks, which, I think ultimately typically hurts the teams that has them. But in terms of all the teams that played, I think we looked the sharpest out of them all. Obviously got the clean sheet. Bear's goal at the end, which was a stupid giveaway from Inter, kind of made the scoreline look, I guess, a little worse than it really was. But 3-0 rolling, 2 Santi assists. It was a game.
Yeah, I think for sure it was a great performance. We started off where the attack was super hungry and looked very eager to get a goal early, but our midfield and defense specifically looked shaky to start. Acevedo gave away a couple passes in the midfield. There's a couple of miscues in the back that didn't concede a chance, but very easily it could have. And I saw it being a game where very easily we could have just given away a couple of balls, been in a sticky situation and been down a goal or two. But at the same time, the attack was so hungry that we could have been up 2 goals and we could have been down 2 goals in the beginning with that shaky start. I was just happy, the second half went the way that it did, and we started converting chances. Santi stopped slipping in important positions. We were feeding Gabby the ball. We were working together to create team goals. And Tinnerholm, hats off to him. I mean, everyone's going to be talking about the Santi 2 assists. Tinnerholm looked like a man possessed, a man on a mission. You said it that, we may not have him next year. He's playing like it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I also liked in the little behind-the-scenes thing that we saw posted on the NYCFC YouTube, after Cushing was given a little bit of a speech to the guys, Tinnerholm was screaming out at them as well afterwards, and it was just that is something that he brings to the team, and, probably something that he was even bringing to the team when he was injured last year, still there as one of those figures in your locker room that are super important. But, you need guys like that when, early on, I think, like you said, Gonzalo almost put us on notice immediately. I mean, if we go down 1-0 in the 10th minute, I don't know. I think that the complexion of this episode is
much different.
Completely different. I'm not sure we recover from it, honestly. But early after seeing that, you get a little worried that, obviously they have the ability to score, and it was a matter of inches that kept them from doing it. And then it started, to me, between the 2 Santi slips that you mentioned, the double doink, which, how...
Double sync?
Yeah, double sync on our Twitter. But, I've never seen something like that before, and then you have, even before the double doink with Bear, he just takes a touch that was just too heavy that, doesn't give him a great shot on goal, and you have Thiago Martin's header go off the crossbar, and early it felt like one of those games where it felt like one of those the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals where we're going to have 18 shots, nobody's going to score, and Gonzalo's going to get a free kick and knock us out of the playoffs or something on his retirement run.
Right.
And luckily it didn't go that way. I mean, Santi, and you could give him all the praise because definitely on this podcast you're the Santi guy to the two of us, but playoff Santi, as Tavon would put it, is a different gravy.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I don't know.
Yeah,
I've come around a
definitely.
little.
There's just a fire that lights within him. I think maybe it's the fact that when he sees that there's a trophy available, it just goes to a new level for him. I thought he performed insanely well. It was unfortunate. I mean, and it sucks that you know we had to highlight it, but it was one of those things that could have been the difference maker. If let's say that game finishes 1-0 and we had two Santi slips in important situations, and that's all that happened.
Mm-hmm.
It would be super important to point out, like, dude, yeah, you slipped right in front of goal twice. Like, nobody around you. You just fell. And so it felt important to kind of shout that out and be like, hey, we need Santi to turn it around to be able to score. And, he just flipped that switch. It was basically after those two slips that he just mentally flipped a switch and was like, I'm not going to let that define this game. That's not going to be how this goes.
And I think that's different
than something. I don't think that came out right.
I think that's different than something we maybe might typically see out of Santi. I feel like sometimes, obviously, I mean, we have a few guys on our team where emotions can get the best of them, and once that bad game begins, it sort of runs throughout the rest of the performance. And, I mean, with Santi, that's a big step in terms of maturity as a player, not emotionally maturity, but, like, being able to take adversity of things not going your way and, like, completely, put that to the side. And I think a leader like Maxi probably helped a ton with that, who obviously this game played out of his mind. I mean, you're talking about Tinnerholm potentially leaving after the season. I want to say we have an option on Maxi, but he's been, we've talked, he's been very vocal throughout this season about wanting to return to his boyhood club in Argentina and stuff like that.
Which you were not happy about.
Yeah.
You were not happy.
I was not happy about that. And that was a much different time where, talking about Santi, they are fighting on the field on national TV, which you cannot
talking about
be doing.
Leaving, Cushing's possibly being pushed out. I mean, It was a different world.
It was a whole different world, and I mean, I want to save it for like maybe if we are to win another game, but I feel a lot like Gary V with that receipts video, But I do like to see. I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a good amount of people that before were like fully Cushing out, like he needs to leave tomorrow. After this game, he's gone. After this game, he's gone. But them kind of coming around to Cushing and sort of now posing some of the questions that we posed back then. It's like, obviously Cushing's staying, but at what point of a playoff run buys him time? And people are now starting to converse sort of the way that we were before. And I think a lot of people are sort of in the same way where it's going to depend a lot on this Montreal game. I think we've said no matter what, the FO needs to do a search, even if they're down for Cushing. Anybody after a World Cup cycle, like
how could you not?
Anybody could be available.
Yep.
People are gonna make names in that World Cup, both players and obviously managers alike. So it would be irresponsible, I think, not to do a search. And hey, if Cushing gets us to a finals appearance, wins against Montreal, that's a great fallback if you don't find a perfect candidate in your search.
I mean, I would say, if he even, I would say he would need to get us to an Eastern final, period, for us to move forward with him next year as an option.
Yeah, I agree.
I love Cushing. I love what he's done for us. But at the end of the day, like, he does have that interim tag for a reason. And, the only thing that changes my mind there is getting us to an Eastern final and being competitive in it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything outside of that, it's a failure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I would have said that in the middle of a 7-game losing streak.
We did say that.
And like, the standard's the standard regardless. This team has the talent. We could do it.
Well, that's the beauty of, we talked about this with the Tom guy we were mentioning earlier. The beauty of the playoffs is like it's a system where, and like we are the guys. Once you get in, there's a lot of different things that can happen, and of course when you introduce pressure and emotions of one and done games and everything like that, sometimes really good teams can fold and sometimes underdog teams can emerge. I think we still kind of maintain an underdog role. Against Miami, I sort of felt like it was going to be one of those retirement tour things for Gonzalo, and then obviously now even just odds wise we're probably the underdogs against Montreal. So I think keep rocking with that and hopefully upsetting people.
Yeah, well, I think no matter what, we think on the outside. It really it's what they believe in the locker room,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in the locker room they have heard people like me um, saying how hard it is to repeat an MLS Cup. Um, how we're NYCFC is performing very well, but can they keep it on for another 4 games and win another cup? The last cup was a fluke. I think they're hearing all of that stuff, and they're adopting an underdog mindset for themselves regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're fighting from a place of I have nothing to lose, so why not play my best?
Yeah.
Why not just put the best thing on the field that I can? I think that's what's going to give them the results. That's where they're fighting from. They have a way of digging into that when others can't.
Right. And I think, talking about that, comparing it kind of more so to the Cup last year, which obviously the players do not like anybody to do. Sean was vocal about it, like right after our podcast, and we'll never say he heard it, but there were a lot of people spinning that same image. At the start of that downturn, that 6 or 7 game loss streak, where it's like, last season we got in and look at what we did, and Sean was very quick to shoot that down. But I think one similarity that we saw in this game that we saw last year in the playoffs was it was a true like team victory. Like I think everybody across the board, regardless of their salaries or what type of star power they have on the team, like genuinely stepped up. I mean, O'Toole, you obviously singing his praises as a left back. More so on the defensive side, I'll say, if we want to talk about O'Toole. But outside of O'Toole, we had Acevedo step up, who, otherwise it would be Morales in that role. I thought Acevedo was playing his you-know-what off in that game. I mean, seriously.
Outside of the first couple of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the whole team, though, in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah, the whole team were a little shell-shocked.
Yeah, but I think he stepped up. And then, obviously, I mean, it almost feels like everybody else in a position on our team is one of those star players, but they all stepped up seriously. Yeah,
I mean, as far as O'Toole, I was going to tweet early on that it seemed like a lot of our attack was going to come from the right side.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like, Cushing or the players or whoever saw something on that left side of Miami, probably not seeing Yedlin out there.
I don't know how you could miss him with the pink hair.
Obviously not wanting to go down Yedlin's side. They saw something out there that they wanted to take advantage of, and I just I could see a lot of the attack was coming from the right side, and so O'Toole really didn't have a whole lot to deal with because the attacks just started channeling through that right side.
Yeah.
And I was going to tweet, I think this is going to be a game of Tennerholm and Hebert versus Yedlin and Gonzalo, and who's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, they came out on
but
top.
we started playing literally around them, like literally just having our way with them.
Yeah.
In terms of passing and getting around, so we didn't necessarily have to have that 1.0 approach, but I mean it worked out.
I think that's a good conversation. Well, I think there's a few conversations to have, that are probably tough decisions for Cushing to make now. If Tales is healthy. Knowing that Hebert got a little bit of his confidence in that goal at the end, do you plug a Tales in over a Hebert?
I don't know. I feel like, in a way, you almost have to keep that exact lineup, and you change it when it's no longer working.
It's hard though too, because then what if Morales is good to go, Alfredo, and like you surely sub him for Acevedo, right?
Like no, I think Acevedo played too well. And at this point, like an Alfredo should be like a pull the red lever, emergency break glass, an emergency type of guy.
Yeah.
He should be somebody that comes in and puts his body on the line because we have to and he has to, not because we need him necessarily. I think Acevedo's going to be the guy that does the job. I think you keep the current lineup. It is what it is, and when it's not working, you make the sub quick. If it's the 47th minute, and that Santi's not putting it in and it's not getting turned around, you got to pull the plug. If whoever, if it's GP, I doubt it, but if it's GP, it's GP. If it's Hebert, it's Hebert.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then another question, too, is Keaton. I think that was probably the most confusing one pregame that everybody was talking about was why is Keaton not getting the start? We're under the impression that he's ready to go, and obviously Cushing talked about it after the game, and he said he was unsure if he had the fitness to go the full 90. And I think that's one of those decisions like in American football where the coach goes for 2 points at the end of the game. Like if he gets it, it's like, oh, okay,
Right.
that was a great idea. Like you're so
Yeah.
smart. But like if they don't get it, then it's like, how could you make such a dumb decision? So I think, in terms of this decision, keeping Keaton not as a starter, it kind of paid off because the game went the way that we wanted it to.
Yeah, I mean, I almost saw that less about Keaton's 90 and more about Anton's 90. Because to me, the biggest question was, can Anton go 90 minutes? If not, we know that Acevedo's going to have to go to right back position. And we know Acevedo can play 90 minutes. We don't know that Keaton can.
Yeah.
So we know that, Acevedo can start the game and finish the game if he has to at right back. We don't know that if we put Keaton in the game and start him, and we need to bring Acevedo in, that we're going to have Keaton for the full 92.
Yeah.
And end up in a position where you kind of, shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
And so that I saw it as that right from the beginning. Luckily, Anton looks up to it. Looks like he's just, if there is any problems, I couldn't tell.
No, me either. Well, and that's important that he is, because like you said, the attack for the most part was going through his side of the field. I mean, with O'Toole on that other side, we could dive a little bit deeper into it. I think he sort of embodied like a Tavon, but on the left side, where his one-on-one defending is crazy, but getting up the field and making something of it, typically is not what he's going to be best at.
It looked a little rough that game, and I think at first his defense almost started off a little rough too. It almost seemed like there was a cross that came in from his side that he gave way too much space to him. He was way too relaxed on getting to closing down the ball. And I saw that and I was like, please don't make it this game.
Yeah, not the whole game.
Don't make it this game that you fold. I was really worried about it.
Yeah.
But going off of that, I think O'Toole can definitely be the guy in attack if asked to. And I was actually going to lead into the Montreal game. I could see Montreal looking at the tape of this game and saying, if we just close down Tinnerholm, if we could stop Tinnerholm or start punishing him for going forward, we can win this game. Take away Tinnerholm, you're kind of setting up O'Toole to have this breakout, nutty attacking game that we know he can have. They may not know it,
right?
Because there's not the tape on it. We know that if they unlock O'Toole and give him that freedom, it's a game.
He can do it. Yeah,
he can do it.
He can do it. I mean, we obviously saw him in the Derby, in the Campeones Cup, back to back, midweek, and then the weekend Saturday right after the fact, playing. I mean, with stoppage time included, we're talking like 100 minutes in each game. I mean, you have to be, what is he, 21 years old to be able to do that, to be able to do something like that, and that's why it's valuable to really have him. But I think the good thing about that, I like your idea that I do believe that Cushman will probably go with is the no changes method. I think especially when you're in a tournament play, you often see that if you're winning the game, you are
it's not broke. Why fix it?
Exactly. But I think also Cushing has that lever. Let's say, like you said, I do believe that Montreal watches that game and goes, all right, if Tinnerholm is out of the game,
right,
they're not scoring a goal.
We have a better chance.
So, thankfully, and I hope Cushing is not totally out on Malday, which I think this is like I don't know, there's no injury news related to Malday, so I guess O'Toole has just beat him, which is crazy to even think about that happening like 2 months ago. Is just is unrealistic,
right? Well, just when you go back to the fact that we were left with one left back, and thinking that this is not going to be the guy that plays every single game this year.
Yeah, and Malday was typically the defensive of the two when you're obviously alluding to Goody.
Right.
The defensive of the two when you're looking at a Malday and a Goody, so letting the attacking one go, and now we have O'Toole and Malday who are sort of both better defensively than they are moving forward. So I guess I would be a bit concerned if O'Toole, through the first 45, 50 minutes, it's not coming that way, and Montreal has successfully found a way to lock down Tinnerholm. Malday is our option to bring in to potentially supplement that left side and hopefully provide some attacking opportunity. So I think, that'll be a matchup to pay attention to if O'Toole ends up having to come out, seeing if Malday can make something happen.
Right. I mean, we could literally see like a chess match where Cushing goes, okay, well, ideally if I'm coaching against me right now, I'm taking out Tinnerholm. So let me take Tinnerholm out and let me force things to the left, or let me force Collins to have that role again where he's moving up the field and he's the one bringing the ball up.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of ways that this can go, and I'm just excited for it. My like nerd brain is just going haywire, trying to think of all the possibilities of like, okay, if you shut down Tinnerholm, then it's this. If you shut down this, then it's Tinnerholm. If you shut down both, then Collins is going to bring the ball up.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of ways we can win this game.
I think the more that we talk about it, I feel like this is going to be a game of subs for us. Like it's
Probably.
The game is going to live and die on the subs that we make
and how quickly we make them.
Yes, and that they are the right subs as well. Because so in the scenario that we've now created, of certain things needing to happen, we have an Acevedo starting, who we're going to need to be at his best. We're going to need an O'Toole starting that's going to need to be at his best. And then we're going to need a Hebert starting, with the same lineup that's going to need to be at his best, right? So now we've got 3 players here, and let's just say, one could fold. Out of 3, it's 2 out of 3 can do amazing, but if one folds, then it's going to be Malday that has to come in and do it. It's going to be Tales that has to come in and do it, or it's going to be Morales that's going to have to come in on that last leg and do it.
Or Keaton. Yeah,
or Keaton. But somebody, it's going to be, I think, somebody coming in that is going to have to make that difference and bring that energy. And, we're not at home. I think, we haven't talked at all about the atmosphere of Citi Field, and unfortunately we weren't able to go, but it did translate through the TV.
Definitely.
So we won't have that 12th man is the unfortunate part.
Well, and they've done the thing again where they've limited the away allotment to the fans. We've dealt with that before. It's cheese. Go buy.
I mean, they just buy. There's Montreal fans that are reselling.
Yeah, we will travel like we did before.
Mm-hmm.
I personally can't. I'm not allowed out of the country. They got laws against that, I guess. But I may just have to hop a little border and get sent back. I mean, what's that problem?
Well, I was trying to. I do have my passport, so I was trying to find somebody to go with me. I think Montreal is only 5 hours from here, but I don't know. Doesn't seem logical.
I don't know.
Not on a Sunday either.
Yeah, guys gotta work.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they were to do like a day visa, there's a day visa program you guys know about. Let me know. I'll do it. I don't care. I'll quit my job.
Yeah, I mean and I think even more so now that after what we saw last year, there's probably a lot more fans that didn't travel to every game
that want to,
and probably were like, when we won the cup, much like us. I mean, we thought of driving to Philly,
right.
And then even we thought of flying to Portland and what the different plans would look like to do that, and ultimately just different life schedules with work and stuff didn't allow it to happen. But there's probably a few people that did the same thing as us after we won the cup. They were on the cusp of going, and they were like, man, if I get another chance to go to games, then I will be doing it. So we're probably traveling, I think, better now than we even did last season.
Yeah, I mean, if it's in the country, there's a way better chance you'll catch us there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if, I'm not even gonna go with scenarios, but if it's
if Alexi Lalas,
if Alexi Lalas is correct and it's in my old literal home, how could I not?
There may have to be some flights purchased.
How could I not go?
Some reservations made, and I don't know. Alexi Lalas, he's in terms of MLS Cup playoffs, man's been spot on. Basically everything else that comes out of his mouth, we are obviously very much disagreeing and against.
Dumbass.
I didn't even say ass earlier when I was talking about Acevedo, but
You get a start. You get to do what you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, look forward to the coverage for us leading up to the game. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us anywhere you get a podcast. And then look forward to, obviously, the episode that we're talking about with our buddy from the UK.
Tom.
Yes. And so look forward to that on his end. Obviously, once that comes out, we'll shout it out. And then hopefully one day we have him on ours, because I just think the conversations with him are great.
And he's a Leeds fan, so
he's a Leeds fan.
That is America's...
that's America's team, not the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Sorry to your girlfriend, but yeah. So we'll leave you guys with that. Follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to YouTube if you're here at this point. I mean,
yeah.
Subscribing on YouTube is, how could you not do that so far? I mean, you're 20 minutes in. How could you not? So see you guys next week, probably from the same spot, because we're still working on the studio. So
yeah, I mean, last thing I'll say, the housekeeping studio definitely coming next season. It's debuting next season with opening day, whenever the playoff run ends. We'll probably take a little break, maybe record like an episode or two, because we're most likely gonna have things to say about the World Cup, I would assume.
Oh yeah. Well, and we're getting pressured
by friends
to have something like that
with them involved. So who really knows what that looks like?
Just cloud chasers, really.
Yeah. Well, it's also two Italians, so what do they really have to say?
Yeah, about the World
Cup.
About
the World Cup. And I'm sorry if you're listening and you're an Italian. But if your name's Tom Ricci, then I'm not sorry whatsoever.
Yeah. And also, if you're new to the podcast, if this is the first time you ever watched, if you ever were to hear one of us say, last thing I'll say, it is absolutely by no chance the last thing that you'll hear. So maybe we'll put the cap on this one. Episode 82 in the books. See you guys next week. Next week.
Yeah, after Montreal.
Peace.
Peace.
Jeez Louise.